What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show, DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, or the Daily Racing Form's Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the recap edition, going back and taking a look at 5 graded stakes races from this past weekend, the weekend of December the 1st and December the 2nd. 3 of them are the Grade 1 variety, 2 of them 2-year-olds, possibly seeing some future stars going forward, soon to be 3-year-olds here in a few weeks. If you listen to this in podcast form, like most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. If you're over on YouTube, click that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. You'll get all the latest from DRFTV. If you're over on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, head on over there, write us a review, give us a positive rating. Greatly, greatly appreciated, as always. Let's kick things off with the final Grade 1 of the year for the NYRA circuit. The final Grade 1 in New York for 2018. The Grade 1 Cigar Mile, a one-turn mile. Let's take a look at the field. 8 of them signed on. Post-time favorite, the well-traveled Mendelssohn for Aidan O'Brien. He was bet down to odds of 8-5. We all know I'm a huge fan of Mendelssohn. I didn't like his chances coming into a race like this for a number of reasons. We'll go into that a little bit more after when we talk about the race. But he was no slam dunk in here. Now, this was not a vintage sort of edition of this race. It was very, very wide open. It didn't seem like there were any superstars in here. But we got a pretty emphatic winner in here. I thought, all things considered, this was a big-time effort from this Chad Brown trainee. Here is Pattern Recognition taking down the Cigar Mile.
Followed by Stan the Man as the field turns for home. Pattern Recognition clings to the lead by a length and a half. Pat on the back. On the outside, True Timber is finishing well. Sunny Ridge comes alive down on the inside of Mendelssohn. They're in the final furlong. It's Pattern Recognition who just keeps on going. An outstanding performance from Pattern Recognition, coast to coast in the Cigar Mile. True Timber.
Pattern Recognition gets the job done with a 105 Beyer speed figure at odds of 5-1. The runner-up, True Timber, second longest shot on the board at odds of 31-1, and Sunny Ridge rounds out the trifecta at odds of 6-1. Mendelssohn defeated as the 8-5 favorite. He finishes a relatively dull 4th. Let's talk about Pattern Recognition a little bit. He is 5 of 11 lifetime, 10 times in the exacta from 11 lifetime starts, over $800,000, owned by Clarovich Stables Incorporated and William H. Lawrence, trained by Chad Brown. Get used to hearing that name in this recap edition. He's going to pop up a few more times as well. Bred by Ocala Stud in Florida, ridden to victory by Jose Ortiz. Congratulations to the Ortiz family, another baby in the fold. And you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card for Pattern Recognition. He is by Adios Charlie, out of a high cotton mare named Almost a Valentine. I made mention, a 105 Beyer for Pattern Recognition, a 124 Timeform US rating. Some things to consider with Aqueduct as a whole. Well documented from a number of reliable sources that the track at Aqueduct on Saturday was all over the place, where early on the card it was very, very slow, yielding just incredibly slow times. Then something changed dramatically, and you get to a race like the Cigar Mile where they stop the clock in sub 135. Timeform US had the main track at Aqueduct color-coded as the light red shade, meaning it was slightly speed-friendly, perhaps helping a horse like Pattern Recognition. In the grand scheme of things, I thought this was a good effort. I didn't like him coming into this because I thought he had everything go his way in the Kelso in that most recent start at Belmont Park, but it just didn't matter. He broke sharp. Jose went on with it, got him down. I don't want to say he dissuaded Mendelssohn from the lead, because Mendelssohn, let's call a spade, he just wasn't very sharp in this race. They went 22-4 for the opening quarter, 45-3, for a half, 9-3 for 3 quarters, and again they stopped the clock at 34-4. I thought it was a good effort from this horse, and it sounds like there's a real possibility that they could go on to the Pegasus World Cup with the horse like this. He's never gone a distance at 1 mile and 1/8 in the past. Chad has sort of made mention, and I think it's accurate, if he's going to get 1 mile and 1/8, or you're going to try it, Gulfstream Park's the place to do it, with his running style being forwardly placed. The way that he galloped out, I don't have too much of a concern about 1 mile and 1/8. I think he could certainly get it. The 2-turn sort of configuration, perhaps that's a little bit of a different ball game, but Pattern Recognition, he's developed into a nice, talented horse, and I don't really have anything to knock about this effort. The one thing I will say is when you look and see a horse like True Timber, who is a solid horse, he is by no means a superstar. I wouldn't even really consider him a true grade grade 2, grade 3 type. I would look at him sort of as a fringe grade 3, then probably more of an allowance type. When he comes and loses this race by 3/4 of a length, and he comes with a legitimate bid at the very end of it beneath Joe Bravo, that's when I look at this race and go, my concerns going into it about the strength of it, I think they're validated with a horse like True Timber running second in here. Sunny Ridge, he comes up the inside, runs quite well. He was against the grain in that run at Belmont Park in the Kelso. Perhaps he's just not as good as Pattern Recognition. It was just a little bit of a surprise to me, because when you had gone through and taken a look at a few different things, I just kind of figured that maybe this was an opportunity for Sunny Ridge to outfinish a horse like Pattern Recognition. He unfortunately was unable to do that. He finishes a solid third. Mendelssohn has been retired. He will not come back in 2019. They were talking about running him in the Pegasus and then retiring. He's not going to do that. At least that's the plan right now. You got to look at it a few different ways, wherever you stand on Mendelssohn. If you think he was a bum, if you think he was overrated, or you think he was talented. This was a long campaign, no matter how you chop it up. The number of times he went, think about it, he went from his home over in Europe over to Dubai. He went back home. He went over to Kentucky. He went back home. He came back to Belmont Park. He went back home. Came back for the Travers, went back home. Came back for the Jockey Club, went back home. Came back for the Classic, went back home. Came back for this race. That's a lot of miles for any living creature. Forget about a racehorse that is supposed to go out there and produce their A effort each and every time. I also combine that with the idea that I never thought that this one-turn mile configuration was really what he wanted. You look at the Dwyer. That was his other just giant dud. Again, draw a line through the Kentucky Derby. You know whose. I look at this race and say it was a combination of this horse. He just had been... It was a long, long campaign for him. Perhaps his best race is not good enough to run with a horse like Pattern Recognition. But this, I just didn't like him coming into this. And frankly, I was a little bit surprised he took as much money as he did. Mendelssohn, I love you. I've always been a fan. Hopefully his sort of genes are passed along, and some of these babies of his will come out and they'll end up being superstars. Pat on the Back was the horse that I liked in this race. He was closer to the pace than I thought he would be. I think that was a combination of things. When Mendelssohn doesn't go or isn't able to make the front, or at least able to push a horse like Pattern Recognition, I think all of a sudden that changed the dynamic of the race a little bit. And I don't have a problem with what Dylan Davis did. It just didn't seem like the horse really kicked on. Maybe he's not this good, but, it is what it is. Took a shot in here. Look, I was more than happy with the price at 15-1. Just couldn't quite get the job done. Stan the Man, I thought he was overmatched. Disappointing effort from Timeline. He never showed any sort of real interest. As far as Coppertown is concerned, I realize he didn't have a good start. He got banged around coming. He stumbled and got banged around a little bit. A horse like Coppertown's always a dangerous one way or the other. Because you look and see he's so lightly raced, what he has shown flashes of brilliance, looks like he could be anything. But at the same time, I brought it up when I talked about it in the preview show, when you looked at some of the figures and compared them, there was no real guarantee that he's actually this good. So I'm sure most people will look at this and say, oh, well, the start compromised all chance, and he was never going to fire at that point anyway. Fair. I can't really dispute that. But at the same time, this is one of those instances where if this horse shows up in another big race, I'm still not totally convinced that he's of this caliber. One speed figure set would suggest he is. At least one other, and a couple other that I've taken a look at, would suggest that he is not that good. We'll find out in time. Hopefully he shows up in another spot and he can prove doubters like myself wrong, or he can prove the loyal fans and the loyal faithful, the betting public, that he is every bit as good as he's looked visually on the track. But at 2-1, he had some issues at the start of the race, and that certainly compromised his chances. Would he have run with a horse like Pattern Recognition? We'll never know, at least until the next time. But Pattern Recognition, he backs up that win in the Kelso. I thought he was a little bit dressed up coming out of that race. Guess what? He answers the bell. He gets the job done with an impressive front-running score. In the Grade 1 Cigar Mile, 105 Beyer, 124 time form U.S. rating, and it sounds like a possible starter in the Pegasus World Cup. Main event at Del Mar on Saturday was the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. Let's take a look at that field. 3-year-olds going 9 furlongs on the grass. A field of 13. You scratched California Gold Rush, the filly, before the race started. Post-time favorite was no surprise. Raging Bull coming in for Chad Brown from the East Coast. You know what this horse is capable of on his best day. His most recent run at Belmont Park left a little bit to be desired. Certainly more on the disappointing side, but he had been given some time off, about 2 months. And you figured if Chad was going to send him all the way out there, he was probably going to be primed and ready to go. That's exactly what he was. Here's the stretch run of the Hollywood Derby.
Go wide, but Raging Bull has dead aim on the leaders. They come for home. Raging Bull on the outside. River Boyne in the red has gone on. River Boyne, Raging Bull coming at him with each and every stride. River Boyne's all heart holding on to it. River Boyne, Raging Bull. Raging Bull has got him. Raging Bull up to win it.
Raging Bull gets the job done as the 9-5 favorite over the second choice, River Boyne. And he finishes second at 5-2 over the third choice, Instilled Regard, the other Chad horse making his turf debut at odds of 5-1. That trifecta, a couple of Chads along with River Boyne comes back, $27 and some change for 50 cents. Let's take a look at Raging Bull a little bit more. He's 5 of 7 lifetime, 6 times in the exacta. Over $584,000 in career earnings, owned by Peter M. Brandt, trained by Chad Brown, another Chad winner in a Grade 1 race. Bred by Dayton Investments Limited in France. Ridden to victory by Joel Rosario, and you see the pedigree. He is by Dark Angel, out of a Mr. Greeley mare named Rosa Bonheur. A 97 Beyer speed figure for Raging Bull, winning the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. Gets his final 1/8 of a mile in 11:35. Flashed just a tremendous kick, and Rosario, I thought, did everything right on him, kept him out in the clear. We talk about saving ground so often in turf races, and I understand everyone likes the idea of that ground-saving, rail-skimming trip. Save, and then, you get the jump and go on with it, and you've got everything going on for you. I personally, give me clean run every day of the week. Save ground on the first turn, save ground down the backside when the real running starts. Make sure that you are not going to be impeded. I don't care if you have to come 5 or 6 wide. It's exactly what Rosario did with Raging Bull. Save ground, get him out into the clear, and let him roll home. I thought it was an impressive effort, but an unsurprisingly strong effort, because this is what you expect when Chad sends horses out of I shouldn't even say this. When Chad runs horses in Grade 1 races, you expect him to run. Plain and simple. The fact that Raging Bull was 9-5, almost 2-1, some people might look at that and say that was a bit of a bargain. The 1 1/8, he had proven himself over more testing ground than what you had on Saturday. And again, all things considered, I don't have much to add other than I thought he was very impressive and he did what he was supposed to do. He went and ran down a nice horse in River Boyne. Now, River Boyne might be one of the few Southern California-based horses that can go east and be competitive. I feel like in a division that really it feels like, especially now, if you look at it, it's been a minute since we've seen it's in the post. You look at some of the other horses out there in Southern California, there is no boss as far as older horses are concerned on grass. It feels like anyway, and let's just hope everything goes on and they continue on with him. I would see no reason why they wouldn't. Let's hope that this Mullins horse right here is one that can kind of take the torch from It's in the Post, because I think we all agreed that It's in the Post, he's not quite what he once was, even if he comes back off of a long layoff. On the flip side, River Boyne, it feels like distance. I didn't think the distance got him beat. I just think he got beat by a better horse on this day. I like everything about River Boyne. I think he's rock solid, and he ran a giant race here. He ran a winning race. I mean, he was only a half length defeated, and he was almost 3 lengths clear of Instilled Regard. Though, all things considered, Instilled Regard ran fine for his first turf race. It never really looked like he was going to win, but the fact that he fought on to finish third, I thought that was solid enough. He can be a useful horse going forward. I would still like to see him get back to the dirt at some point. Prince Earl, I thought this was a good effort, and the interesting thing there was you could see from that most recent run, he got banged around at the top of the lane, and he popped back to his left lead, and that's when he finished on. I don't think that was truly indicative of the horse getting short or any of those sort of things. I just think he kind of got bounced around. For one of the first times in his career, he was so lightly raced, he came back, acquitted himself very nicely here. I know there's some things that have been made about the ride with Carrick, with Kent DeSormo. The only thing I can say is when I watched the tape, coming around the first turn, it's not so much that they were going that slow. I thought Kent had a hard hold on the horse, and the horse was just going. And at that point, if I'm Kent DeSormo and I'm anyone that bet on Carrick, I'd much rather him do what he did, get him out into the clear. And you know what? If he's just gonna go on and pull, and it's not that he was completely headstrong and crazy, but it looked like Kent had a hard hold on him, and the horse just pulled himself into it. I'd rather have him get him out into the clear, and you know what? You made that little bit of a brush up the backside, and now all of a sudden we have a little bit of a contested pace. I'd rather have that happen than you try to stay, bury him on the inside, try to get him to relax and keep cover, and then he starts throwing his head about and he's just wasting all sorts of energy. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's still one of those instances where they're animals. And they got a mind of their own. And if he wanted to go, he wanted to go. That's at least what it looked like to me with the tape. That it wasn't a matter of Kent pushing him, saying, all right, let's go, angle out and go off and try to take on this thing. I think it was just more a matter of he had two fists full, and the horse kept wanting to go. So rather than get stymied in behind horses, angle him out into the clear, make him have a little bit of a brush. You know he should have the bottom for a race like this. I didn't have a major issue with it. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, they're probably a little bit subpar as far as, in the grand scheme of things, this was a pretty formful race. You had the five top choices run, you had the four top choices run in the top five. I guess Have At It was a little bit disappointing, but he was cutting out the fractions, and again, he's that kind of horse. He was coming off of just such a perfect trip. It was difficult to really get super excited about him in a spot like this. Desert Stone got in a little bit tight on the front side for the first time, but he never really kicked at any point. Yeah, for the most part, I think that's kind of what you got from everyone else. I think for the most part, everyone ran their race, and Raging Bull just was better. Raging Bull and River Boyne, they were very clearly the top two, and you know what? They proved themselves to be that way. Raging Bull gets the job done. He's a Grade 1 winner. He wins the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby with a 97 buyer. One of the more emphatic efforts came Saturday at Aqueduct. Let's take a look at the fourth race, the field for the Grade 2 Demoiselle. These are 2-year-old fillies traveling the demanding 9-furlong distance. Now keep in mind, as I said when we talked about the cigar, the track at Aqueduct changed dramatically early as opposed to the later portion of the card. So this race was run over a very, very deep and tiring surface. You had a field of 7. Your post-time favorite was Enliven at odds of 6-5. She really didn't factor too much in this race. Let's call a spade a spade. One horse factored in this race. Her name is Positive Spirit. Here's the stretch run of the Demoiselle.
Spirit cruises to the front. Enliven fully extended, not responding. A Fleet Destiny moves up on the outside of Philly Joel. They're in the final furlong. And Positive Spirit is putting in a spectacular performance. She has widened to lead by 8. A Fleet Destiny, Philly Joel, and all the others. Positive Spirit in a dominant victory, strolls in the Demoiselle. A Fleet Destiny was second.
11-1 on your winner, Positive Spirit. She pays $24.40. A Fleet Destiny runs second as the second longest shot on the board at odds of 26-1. And Philly Joel, the second choice in the race, great name, finishes third at odds of 5-2. Your trifecta with those nice prices on top comes back $345.50 for 50 cents. Let's take a look at Positive Spirit. She's 2 of 4 lifetime, never been out of the money in 4 lifetime starts, over $206,000 in career earnings. Owned by Michael J. Ryan, trained by Rudolph Brisset, bred by Santa Rosa Partners in Kentucky, ridden to victory by Manny Franco, the leading rider at this Aqueduct Fall meet. And you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. She's by Pioneer of the Nile out of an in excess mare named Above Perfection. 86 buyer speed figure for Positive Spirit, winning the Demoiselle, a 107 buyer speed, 107 time form US rating, 86 buyer, 107 time form. They match up pretty well, all things considered. Again, keep in mind the main track at Aqueduct, they had that color coded as slightly speed friendly. So again, perhaps working in the favor of a horse like Positive Spirit, but you can't argue with the fact that she was up there, and Timeform US had the quarter, half, and 3/4 splits all color-coded red. So she was up there, prompting a relatively swift pace. Take a look at the fractions. It may not look like it at face value, but when you consider how slow the track played at Aqueduct for that beginning half of the card, 24, 49, 15, and 2 for 3/4, those are legitimate when they stop the clock in 56 flat for a mile and an eighth. It may have looked like they were just trudging home, but I have to be honest with you, there's a difference to me when you see a horse like Positive Spirit come home in 1381 as opposed to the runner-up and the third-place finisher. They came home in well over 14.5 seconds. When I see Positive Spirit keep coming on the way that she did, I thought she was actually handling it quite well, and I thought she finished quite well in the grand scheme of things. This was a major league effort. One of those efforts that you look at and go, this could be a major 3-year-old coming up. I liked everything about it. I have no knocks. The pedigree is there. I thought there were some interesting quotes from Rudy Brisset afterward, though. He was quoted saying, or I shouldn't say quoted, but the gist of the quotes taken into context were if they point to the Oaks, she'd likely run twice. Once being the Grade 1 Ashland as a final prep, and then a race prior to that getting her ready for the Ashland. But his quote that I found most fascinating, and it's refreshing, it's nice. He was quoted saying, she may be more of an Alabama filly. More ground could really be good for her, too. I don't think we have any pressure to make the Oaks. So, we're at a weird point for a number of reasons in horse racing. But I think one of the nice things, to me anyway, it makes it sound like this is not necessarily just going to be, you know what, we've got Derby or Oaks fever and we're going to do everything in our power to get her there. Doesn't mean she won't run there, but if they think that there is a better option for her and perhaps it will prolong her career, I'm all for them looking at it saying, you know what, our goal with a horse like this might be the Alabama as opposed to the Oaks. Some of these races that, sure, you don't ever want to, discount history and put it down. You always have to recognize it and respect it. But I think so often we get just hung up on, well, they did this and they got to go here and they got to do this and they got to do that. Or you let the horse tell you where you're going to go. And who knows, maybe she'll be coming back as a 3-year-old here and she's going to be kicking the stall down and saying, let's do it, and maybe they'll go on with it. But keep in mind, this trainer did something similar earlier this year. He had a horse ready to go for the Derby. Didn't love how he was coming into it. Didn't love the timing of it. They waited, ran the Preakness. Now, he didn't run well in the Preakness. But the point is, he's going to go and do right by the horse. I think it's very, very interesting. I like it. It's to me, it's refreshing. It's not immediately, we're going to go here. We're going to do this. Wait and see. Have plans, but be able to adapt a little bit. And not for the reasons that we know people make changes. This is a big-time effort from this horse. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, I suppose Philly Joel, maybe you want to give her the benefit of the doubt because she was up there, the one setting those fast fractions over such a tiring track. But on the flip side, she did have the track itself in her favor, if you believe Timeform with that sort of speed-friendly nature. To me, this really, it was a one-horse race. She won by 100 lengths. Positive Spirit was awesome, winning the Demoiselle. One of the more impressive performances of the weekend, with a number of impressive performances. She gets the job done in the Demoiselle. 86 buyer, 107 Timeform US rating. Maybe on to the Kentucky Oaks next year as a goal for a 3-year-old. If they go that way, they'll go with the Ashland prior to that, and then prior to that one race. But maybe they wait for a race like the Alabama up at Saratoga because 10 furlongs seems to be a little bit better for her as far as the profile that she gives off. Either way, she's an exciting prospect, soon to be 3-year-old. Positive Spirit, impressive, winning the Demoiselle. Spoke about the girls in the Demoiselle. Let's talk about the boys in the Grade 2 Remsen, also 1 mile and an eighth, 2-year-olds. Post-time favorite in here, you had 2 horses that took the lion's share of the money, one of them being Network Effect, who ultimately was the even money favorite come post-time, and then also Maximus Mischief, who looked like he could be anything in his first 2 lifetime starts down at Parks. Now you had to deal with, let's call a spade, legitimately talented horses this time around. You had to deal with 2 turns, and you had to deal with 1 mile and an eighth. All of that being thrown at him in a different jurisdiction, and he handled it all beautifully. Here's the stretch run of this year's Remsen.
At the top of the stretch, Maximus Mischief is asked to run now, gets a reminder and opens up a length. Tax is second, 5 back to Network Effect in third, followed by Bourbon War. They're coming to the 16th pole, and it's Maximus Mischief proving he's the real deal as he opens up late. A belated rally from Network Effect. Maximus Mischief wins the Remsen. Network Effect found him.
An impressive effort from Maximus Mischief. He gets the job done at odds of 7-5. Network Effect, the even money favorite for Chad Brown, comes with a little bit of a belated rally to finish second. And Tax, the horse that was up there pressing Maximus Mischief, he actually ran quite well. I thought this was an impressive effort from him. He finishes third at odds of 17-1. Let's talk about Maximus Mischief, a perfect 3-for-3 lifetime, just under $200,000 in career earnings. Owned by Cassius King LLC and LC Racing, trained by Butch Reed, bred by Martha Jane Mulholland in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Frankie Pennington, and the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card, he's by Into Mischief out of a Song and a Prayer mare named Raina Maria. 97 Beyer speed figure, 110 time form US rating for the victory here with Maximus Mischief and the Remsen. Now again, this is going to be an interesting sort of study to take a look at going forward as more and more time goes by and as these horses return, because again, I continue to bring it up, the difference in the way the track played early on as opposed to later, that could lend itself to, it could be a little bit more difficult for the figure makers to end up coming to a conclusion here. So the discrepancy between the two figs, again, this is one of those instances where it's too early to definitively say one way or the other which one is high and which one is low. The Beyer number is at least on par with what he had been earning prior. I believe he earned a 98 in his most recent start. He comes here, he earns a 97. The 110 time form US rating, if you were to take, again, I've used that rough 20-point difference between the two, it's usually pretty accurate. If you take 20 out of the 110, that puts you down around a 90, so perhaps the Beyer is on the slightly inflated side. On the flip side, if you tack 20 onto the 97, you're looking at a massive, massive number from a time form standpoint, about the 117. So time will tell. You don't know anything just yet, but at the end of the day, regardless, it was a promising enough effort from this horse. Timeform US had all of the fractions color-coded blue, meaning the pace was soft. And when you look at the fractions, they can kind of hold up to that. You look and see 25, 50 and 3, 14 and 3 for 3/4. They stopped the clock in 151 and 1. Now you compare that to the fillies who ran earlier in the card when the track was considerably different. We're talking just an eighth of a mile difference between the two of them. Maximus Mischief, it sounds like, according to trainer Butch Reed, he's likely to run in either the Holy Bull or the Fountain of Youth down at Gulfstream Park prior to his start in the Florida Derby. The Florida Derby is on March the 30th in 2019, and that would be his, fingers crossed, final prep leading into the Kentucky Derby. This is a horse that he popped back to his left lead at the end of the race, but given the racing surface, given the way that he was handling 2 turns for the first time, you can... Usually, I don't want to see that. But at the same time, when he did it, his ears were up and flickering around. So there's a part of me that wonders if he's just a little bit on the green side, and he was also probably on the tired side as well. He continued on and galloped out very, very strong. So it is one of those instances where maybe I'm not so quick in a situation like this to look at it and say, terrible, hated to see that. I think it could be a combination of things, and I'll withhold judgment. We'll wait and see. If he does something like that when he finally does return to the races here in a few months, then I'll be a little bit more concerned. But with this race, I thought this was a very, very strong effort. And it at least, at the very least, backs up that this is a legitimate racehorse. You know, I hate to say it, but you're always a little bit skeptical, a little bit dubious when they face lesser horses at a smaller circuit. You know, is everything actually up and up as far as the figures are concerned? Is he actually as good as he has looked on the racetrack? Because he's looked awesome in his first 2 starts. Then he comes out here and looks quite well here in the Remsen on Saturday. I thought this was a big league effort. And I think if you're looking at 2-year-olds going forward, you have to look at Maximus Mischief as one of the best ones in the country. Network Effect, I thought in the grand scheme of things, he ran okay, not great. He did finish with some late interest. He got his final 8th in 12:31 as opposed to Maximus Mischief's 12:86. But when you consider Network Effect was sort of in that drafting position in behind horses, he was hard ridden for about 3/8 of a mile, and he finally did come on with a little bit of energy at the end. He earns a 94 Beyer. So again, it's going to be very difficult to analyze this race until they do come back. I'm going to be very, very interested to see what this race ultimately produces, because we have seen time and time again, I hate to say it, but the New York races this time of year for the 2-year-olds, they just generally have not held up recently anyway. We'll find out how that whole thing shakes down. The rest of the field thought they were all just okay. Again, I thought Tax ran quite well. Bourbon War, decent enough effort, nothing spectacular. Jungle Warrior, probably going to want to go back to the grass with him. In the grand scheme of things, this was all about Maximus Mischief. I thought he was very impressive, and I think you have to keep him on the short list of horses, soon to be 3-year-olds, that you want to be looking and considering serious threats for a race like the Kentucky Derby should he get there. It sounds like it will be one prep, then the Florida Derby, then the Kentucky Derby. Got a long way to go, but Maximus Mischief has already placed himself in that sort of upper echelon for potential Derby starters. 97 buyer, 110 time form U.S. rating, winning this year's Grade 2 Remsen. Last in-depth recap we'll go over was the closing day feature down at Del Mar. The Grade 1 Matriarch, a mile on the turf. Let's take a look at the field. A big full field of 13 signed on. Wherever Chad Brown goes, he's well represented. This, no different. He had Kidura, he had Rimska, and he had Uni. They all came in with their own credentials. They all came in with slightly different running styles, but at the end of the day, they were all very capable of winning a race like this. You combine them with a horse like Vasilika, who is the hometown hero, the local favorite. You combine that with some other interesting horses, the big speed of Fahan Mura. If you believed a horse like Mopatism was facing better horses on the dirt and perhaps she could transfer over. You had a 3-year-old and Daddy is a Legend taking on Elders. You had an interesting horse like Mission Impossible. Also a 3-year-old taking on Elders. Dona Bruja. You could have gone a million different ways in here. Ultimately, a very, very breathtaking finish from one of Chad's horses, the stretch run of the Matriarch.
Passable. Whole wall of horses coming though. Vasilika is in there. Now Uni is starting to unwind on the extreme outside. Vasilika on the inside. Kadara is right there. Daddy is a Legend. Uni coming like a rocket on the outside. Uni out of the clouds. And Uni, a captivating victory today.
Uni gets the job done at odds of 5-1 over Daddy is a Legend, who runs too well to lose. She runs second at 27-1, and Kidura, one of the other Chads, runs third at odds of 7-1. The 2-1 favorite, Vasilika, runs fourth. Let's take a look at Uni a little bit more. Uni is a very, very talented filly. There's no question about it. She's 4 years old. She is now 7 of 14 lifetime, 5 other times in the money. Just under $900,000 in career earnings, owned by a whole mess of people. Dub, head of Playing Partners, LLC, LaPenta, and Bethlehem Stables, LLC. Trained by who else? Chad Brown. Bred by Haras Datraham in Great Britain, ridden to victory by Joel Rosario. You can see the pedigree. She is by More Than Ready out of a Dan Silly mare named Unaided. A 101 buyer speed figure for Uni, winning the Grade 1 Matriarch. I had brought up when we talked about this race, I liked Uni, and I thought it was because of this right here, this late flourish, this late kick that she had, so potent, and you figured to get some good pace with Fahan Mura in here. I had said that I had believed that there was potentially a discrepancy between the buyers that she had earned and some of the Timeform US ratings that she had earned. The Timeform ratings had her on par with some of the faster horses. The buyers, she had never buyered a 100 in her career. I believe her career best was a 97 or a 98 prior to this race. She comes through and she runs her race. Timeform hasn't released their figures just yet, but I'm going to guess it's pretty darn close to what she had been running prior, and now the buyer bumps up to it. It's something that, again, you always want to keep an eye on and look, and it's not just going for those two figures. Those are the ones that I use mostly, but look at all the other figures that are out there and see which ones occasionally they don't all match. Sometimes one figure is a little bit higher than others and vice versa, and you need to make the decision as the handicapper, which ones do you think are accurate and which ones do you think might be slightly off in any given circumstance. This was a breathtaking finish from this filly. I was going to just give you the final quarter, but I'm going to give you all of the fractions for her. She goes 25-23 for the opening quarter, 24-39 for the second quarter. The third quarter, 22-55, is faster than anything any of the top 6 horses ran for their final quarter. Usually your final quarter is your fastest quarter. Her second to final quarter was faster than any of those, and her final quarter was in 22:18. That means that she got her final half mile in sub 45 seconds. I mean, you want to talk about a devastating turn of foot, and that's what you should be looking for if you're a new handicapper and you're new to the whole turf thing. You absolutely have to have a horse that has a finish. If they can't finish, they're not going to win many races, on the grass anyway. If they have a big turn of foot, sure, you don't want them coming from 100 out of it, and maybe this was a perfect storm where you had the big pace signed on and she had that devastating turn of foot, but you always want a horse that has a late kick. Uni, it sounds like she is going to come back as a 5-year-old, according to Chad Brown. I'm going to throw something out there, and I know it's probably not, maybe it's not an original idea, but to me, I'd be looking at it saying, what would my goal with a filly like this be, who has a devastating turn of foot, has proven that she can ship, and a flat mile is her game? No question, it'd be the Breeders' Cup Mile. Going back to Santa Anita next year, it's probably going to get firm going. She can run on anything, and with a turn of foot like that, I think she would have a giant chance. Heck, I think she'd have a giant chance if she had run in that race this year, given the way that it finished. This was a really strong effort from Uni, and she's a Grade 1 winner now. Daddy is a Legend, ran too well to lose. And this is this is something that you should be keeping an eye on going forward, because this is a really positive effort from a filly that's going to be a 4-year-old next year. And this was on the heels. She was going to win that Valley View. Had she not taken a left-hand turn, blown through the inner rail, then she was fine. Clearly, she came back and she ran in this race. This was an awesome effort from her. I like that she has some versatility. She can be mid-pack. She can be a little bit more forward. She was mid-pack here this day because of the pace. And I thought, all things considered, she acquitted herself very nicely. She finished in 23:05. She got a good ride from Manny Franco. She earned a career best 100 buyer. I think as a 4-year-old, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Kidora, I thought she ran an okay race, just sort of even. I know she was relatively close to the pace. Again, the fractions 22-4, 46-1, 10-2 for 3/4. Stopped the clock in 34-1. I thought this was a good effort, and I can say the same thing for Vasilika. I thought they were both solid. I didn't think either of them were spectacular. Maybe you got their B+ efforts here in this spot as opposed to their A efforts. You certainly got the A efforts from Uni, and Daddy is a Legend. Donna Bruja, I like her when she is more forward. I recognize she had that big finish at Keeneland most recently, coming from well off the pace. I think she's better when she is in the running early, when she has that tactical position, and she can, because I think she's going to finish. When you put it this way, I don't think she has a turn of foot like an Uni, and even like a Daddy is a Legend, I guess, if you just want to kind of look at it. From the numbers, Donna Brujo finished in 23:22. I think she would have finished like that even if she was a little bit closer to the pace. And that, to me, sometimes you got to figure out where the horses stack up. Are you a true horse that kicks on like an absolute mule at the end, or are you a horse that has a nice finish, but you're going to sustain that regardless of where you're positioned on the track? I kind of looked at that like a horse like Wise Dan. Wise Dan, he had a legitimate finish, but he didn't have a finish that would have been, sub 22, I would say. I feel like he was that kind of horse that he was going to come home in 23 seconds for that final quarter, but that was going to be on the heels of cranking out 23-1, 23-2 quarter miles throughout the rest of the run. So he's always going to have that leg up on the horses that are going to finish in 22, but they're going to be starting 5 or 6 lengths out of it. That's probably 7 or 8 lengths out of it. I think that's where Donna Bruja, if she is into the run a little bit more early on, I think that would be a little bit more beneficial for her. She didn't run poorly here, but I think she's best when she's a little bit closer to the front. Rimska, disappointing effort here. She just never really seemed to kick it in. I get her back to the East Coast, give her a little bit of time. She can certainly fire some big shots. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, Insta Irma, I would still like to see her go slightly shorter than this. Valadorna just didn't really fire for whatever reason. Fahan Mura, look, this was the way you're supposed to ride her. Try to bottom this field out and say, come and catch me. Didn't work out for them in this spot. She is a nice, talented horse. She can run in other spots. Immopitism, draw a line through this, get her back to the main track. She'll be just fine. Uni, visually awesome. Winning the Grade 1 Matriarch for Chad Brown, a 101 buyer. She will stay in training in 2019, and I'm sure there will be bigger and better things for her to come. I would get ambitious and be targeting the Breeders' Cup Mile, but we'll find out what the connections want to do. That wraps it up as far as the deep, in-depth recaps are concerned, but we're going to throw it into this week's stakes montage. We do have another graded stakes race from Aqueduct that you'll see in that, the Gopher Wand, won by Marley's Freedom, and then you'll get all of the Claiming Crown races from opening Saturday down at the championship meeting at Gulfstream Park. Let's throw it in to this week's stakes montage right now.
The field turns for home. It's Marley's Freedom on the inside, and Come Dancing, and they square off with a furlong left to go. Marley's Freedom is asked to go now. Come Dancing, testing her the entire stretch. Pacific Wind is 5 back in third. Marley's Freedom and Come Dancing in a thriller. Marley's Freedom just in front, and Marley's Freedom closes out an outstanding campaign.
That's a late run from Union Blues, 3/16 to go. Up into the clear, Appealing Future now gets a first shot at Harry He. Small Fortune is next. Lead him in Ken, set down by Israel Hernandez down the center. A late run from Brother Chubb. And through deep stretch, Appealing Future and Nick Juarez have the lead. Brother Chubb charging hard and up into second. The wire comes in time for Appealing Future. Blue Bahia comes off the turn with the lead. Unikoi up on the far outside tries to spring an upset toward the inside. Ladies Island Island is back running again, and she still has a shot. Final eighth of a mile to go. Ladies Island coming back for more at the rail. Oxford Comma's coming back for more as well, and Oxford Comma has the lead. Oxford Comma will win it. Unicoi second, Blue Bahia third, then Ladies Island are followed by Zulu, and they're at the top of the stretch. The rail is open for Rich Daddy as they get to the top horses. Aztec Sense with the lead. Rich Daddy threw on the fence to try to kick with him down the center and race me home. Zulu is next. In deep stretch, it's Aztec Sense for the lead. Rich Daddy takes another run at him. Aztec Sense, Rich Daddy. It's Aztec Sense in the jewel. Next, Bold Rally cuts the corner. Your only man trying to get through between horses. Into the clear comes Hoosier Drama with an eighth of a mile to go. Uncle B set down on the outside to take a narrow lead. On the far outside in a late rally from Aquaphobia, who gets loose late in the game. Uncle B has the lead close to home. Your only man surges at him. Uncle B springs the upset, and they're at the top of the stretch. Up on the outside, Valedictorian set down by Tyler Gaffleone, but Starship Jubilee is up for a fight, and You Cheated has a shot to upset the party with an eighth of a mile to go. Taking the lead now, Valedictorian. Peru is unleashing a late rally. It's a good late rally. It's a winning late rally. Peru going away. Valedictorian out. Moongate Warrior. Donji between horses is there with Kinane, trying to thread the needle as double whammy as they're inside the final 16th. Donji strides to a clear lead. In between horses, Salsa's return. Cheech Thunder from the back. It's a wild scramble here with a 16th to go. Here's the rail run for Salsa's return, who gets up. Salsa's return head start. Amaluna cuts the corner and tries to spring the upset here. She's now rallying well to be second. Down the center and a late run from Honey Bunny. Splitting horses is Mischief Maz. Final eighth of a mile. Starship Rena trying to get home. Mischief Maz knifing between horses. If she can secure room, she's a big threat. Here's Mischief Maz at Starship Rena. Mischief Maz is up in time. Mischief Maz and course is Sambuca Steve. Diddley from the back looking for room. Oak Bluffs, and they're into the drive. With the advantage, it's still Rocket Heat 2.5. Dowse's Beach is there second. Down the center, Oak Bluffs getting motivated late in the game. Bushrod shaking free. 16th to go. Rocket Heat trying to get home. Here's Oak Bluffs lunging late. Here's the line. It's Rocket Heat.
There you have it, this week's stakes montage. Gulfstream Heavy, Gulfstream back in the fold now as a major track going forward. Let's take a look at the weekend's best as far as buyer speed figure performances are concerned. You might see a race from Gulfstream pop up in there as well, but you'll see predominantly Del Mar and Aqueduct. Here we go. 2-year-old males on dirt. Maximus Mischief. We already spoke about him earlier, winning the Remsen with a 97 buyer. 2-year-old fillies on dirt. Positive Spirit. 86 winning the Demoiselle at the Big A. 2-year-old males on turf. Swamp Souffle. 69 buyer, an optional claimer at Del Mar. 2-year-old fillies on grass. Giza Goddess, 81, and a maiden special down at Del Mar. 3-year-old males on dirt. Mendelssohn, a 100 in the Cigar Mile. 3-year-old fillies on dirt. Spend. 77 buyer and a maiden special weight at Del Mar. 3-year-old males on grass. Raging Bull, the winner of the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby with a 97 buyer. 3-year-old fillies on turf. Giant effort from Daddy is a Legend, earning a 100 buyer in the Matriarch. Older males on dirt. Pattern Recognition, the winner of the Grade 1 Cigar Mile, 105 buyer. Older females on dirt. Marley's Freedom, you saw her at the top of the stakes montage with a 102, winning the Gopher Wand, likely puts herself in good position going forward as far as an Eclipse Award is concerned. Older males on turf. Rocket Heat. And the Claiming Crown Canterbury, the 98 buyer, blitzed the field, big speed there and kept going. And the older fillies and mares on turf. Uni with a 101 buyer, winning the Matriarch on closing day, Sunday, down at the Del Mar Thoroughbred Club. There you have it. The weekend's best as far as buyer speed figure performances are concerned on the Matt Bernier Show. Let's take a look quickly at what's to come this week on DRFTV. You'll have all sorts of things. DRF Bets Races of the Day. You'll have the latest edition of Out of the Gate. You'll have the preview edition of this program. You'll have the DRF Players Podcast. You'll have some formulator angles. You'll have the Weekend Warrior, Mike Watchmaker. You name it. You'll have the Breeding Report. It's all out there. All sorts of good stuff for you. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. It's going to button this recap show up. If you've been listening live, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle, at DRF Inside Post, or the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. Thank you for doing so. If you listen to this podcast, like most of you do. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify over on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up over on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Write us a review. Give us a positive rating. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or at me on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt. Until I come back on Thursday Well, I'll record it on Thursday. It'll be uploaded on Thursday afternoon if you're one of those folks that likes to get in early, or it will be live on Friday. Until then, best of luck however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. This has been the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.